Hello everyone. This morning Tekken 8 had its first ever balance patch, which is of course very exciting. If you've watched my channel for a while, you know that balance in Tekken is something that I basically obsess about. I think it's the bedrock for the game being fun for everybody who wants to play it. It's very, very important, and Tekken has historically now for a while had an issue with severely overpowered characters. So I'm really glad to see Namco doing stuff already. The long and short of this patch has it improved the balance to where it's now in a really good space. Not really, but they have made some pretty significant changes, pushing it in the right direction, and I have high hopes that we're going to have more improvements like this going forward. We know that Namco really like to look at statistics. Harada always talks about how he's good at statistics, and that is sort of lays the groundwork for a lot of the choices that they make. And I think with this patch, it feels like they've looked at some of the characters that are extremely popular or have just a really high success rate online, and they've tried to adjust some of their most powerful tools to a more reasonable level. So we're going to go through everything that happened in the patch notes here. I've already done some testing, on my own, and I'm going to show you guys what's up with this patch. So the first character we're going to talk about is Devil Jin, one of the most powerful characters in the game, no question. And they've made two changes that I think are very significant, and it's going to improve your quality of life when you're playing against this character. First of all, his Hell Sweep 1+2 has had a significant damage nerf. If we look at the patch notes, it says that the damage distribution has been changed from 1020 to 714, which comes out to an overall damage nerf of 9 points. 9 points less on a low is very, very big. It's a big damage nerf, which I think is good because this has been historically one of the most ridiculous moves in Tekken. I've never liked the idea of unseeable low launchers in Tekken. I didn't like it in Tekken 7, and this has become a little bit of a niche and a character-defining move for Devil Jin. So they don't want to remove it, but they need to make sure that it's reasonably balanced to any extent they can. They've also corrected an issue where the distance between the character and the opponent increased only when inputting the second hit. So I don't know if that's going to make the move easier to play against. And then it says here they include the motivation for the changes, which I like as well. Sometimes they are a little bit confusing with the way they are worded, but you can sort of find the meaning in there if you think enough about it. These adjustments were made to address the high total damage output of the combo, which significantly exceeded the level of other low attacks. Now, if you are a Devil Jin player, welcome to the channel. I know I talk a lot of shit about you guys, but it's all love. Don't be too sad. The entire power of Devil Jin's Hell Sweep is sort of unrelated to damage. You could make the argument that you could remove the damage completely from this move and it would still be very, very useful in a lot of ways. The reason it's so powerful to be able to launch an opponent with an unseeable low in this game is that obviously, ducking is very dangerous in Tekken because it makes mid-attacks connect automatically, or, they can't be blocked. And for that reason, you should only duck in Tekken when you have a hard read that a high or a low is coming. And so the sort of mind game of Tekken becomes trying to trick the opponent into ducking when they shouldn't. But for the most part, good players don't duck a whole lot in this game unless they're playing some sort of mind game or applying full crouch mix-ups. So, an unseeable low in this game is akin to chip damage. It should basically always connect, more or less, or you should always expect it to connect, even if it doesn't always. And if you are able to knock your opponent off their feet, and you can then start right away applying Oki, you can carry them into corners, you gain all this positional advantage, you gain momentum, you frustrate your opponent. There's all this strength packed into the unseeable low launcher, but making sure that the damage is lower is a pretty satisfying way of improving the design of the move, in my opinion, because they're not going to remove its ability to launch, because that's just too important for Devil Jin and Devil Jin players. Unfortunately, in Tekken, when a move is too good for too long, they stick this very, very overused and boring word on it, which is iconic. And when something becomes iconic, you can't now adjust it, which is why you end up with stuff like, the Death Fist and the Electric and all these moves being prolific through generations of this game. Okay, so I'm happy with this change. I think they changed one more thing about it, didn't they? No, it's just the distance and the damage. So you can still do the exact same combos that you did before off of the Hell Sweep. The next Devil Jin change, and this is the big one in my opinion, this is the important one, this is probably the most significant nerf as far as I can tell in this patch. I haven't played against Devil Jin that much, but this move was something that I thought needed to be looked at. And it's Morning Crow, which is your fly forward stance with Devil Jin. One, this mid right here. So they reduce the duration of the attack by 1 frame to make it less likely to hit sidestepping opponents. They changed the damage from 25 to 20, and they modified the chip damage from 10 to 6. So the reason this is important, right, is that Devil Jin's fly stance was very, very oppressive, and it also dealt a bunch of chip damage, meaning that in heat, if Devil Jin could get like a couple of these stances in, he could deal insane chip damage. He's then also very good, because of his Hell Sweep and things like that, on making sure that the opponent doesn't get those opportunities to gain the health back, you know? And so what were you supposed to do against the stance? Well, the most used move out of the stance by far was this one attack, and it was not easy enough to deal with, in my opinion. But if we switch to defensive training here, and we record Devil Jin doing, my opponent's Devil Jin doing a transition here. And I don't think you can do the input too early. There you go. If you check this out now, even if I get hit by the transitioning move, giving my opponent Devil Jin a bunch of advantage here, the move is actually really quite easy to step. And it's quite easy to step in both directions. I think with this stance, the earlier you step, the better, actually, which is interesting, because Devil Jin is not able to realign during the flight here, which means that if you step very early, you can actually almost get the back. The later you step, the more dangerous it is, so it's still going to be dependent a little bit on your reaction speed. But specifically the chip damage and your ability to just deal with this with movement, I think was very, very important. Devil Jin still has multiple options out of the stance. It isn't making it useless in any stretch of the imagination, but I think like one of the most prolific moves that he abused has been dealt with. And now you know that when they are doing that Morning Crow 1, you have the option of stepping in your favorite direction and getting a punish potentially. So I think that's very, very good. The chip damage change is really good as well. So those are the only real changes to Devil Jin. So I mean, it's significant. It's probably the character that took the biggest hit in this patch, but it's not like the character is going to be bad now. One thing you should be very careful with, this is like, if you're new to this franchise, this is something that you will notice. When an overpowered character gets some sort of significant nerf, what usually happens is the player community can then start going, oh no, my character is destroyed, he's so weak now. They probably know that the character is still really, really good, and it just means that they can now play the character and not get criticized for it. You know, if they if they like really dramatically react to the nerfs, even though they're very reasonable, right? All right, the next character we're gonna look at is Dragunov, and we can actually use quick select for this. Dragunov, obviously another character that needed to be looked at. One of the most played, I almost said most abused characters in online right now. It's like, you know, half the community are playing only Dragunov and Reyna, as far as I can tell. And he has some new tools that are absolutely crazy. We've seen videos of Dragunovs doing, you know, 100+ damage off of standard launchers without heat and stuff. So the first thing is down 3-2. Recovery frames have been increased by 2 frames. So from -6 to -8 on block, and +8 to +6 on hit. And this is actually just a nerf to Dragunov's combo. So this move, it's this thing. He uses this in wall combos, and he can use it for, you know, a combo tool, and it's just here to make sure that some of those really, really unreasonable high damage combos get toned down a little bit. So I think that's a good change. The next thing is actually a buff to Dragunov. Don't worry, it's something that should have been functioning, you know, properly to begin with. But he has this sort of safe bootleg hop kick thing that he's had for years. It's like another prolific Dragunov move. I think it's like one of the craziest and best like mix-up mids you can get, because it's like safe on block and just really, really good. Well, what was happening with this is like you hit with it at certain angles, and even though it's supposed to be a safe move, Dragunov could eat like massive punishes and stuff. So what they've done is when you hit with this now, it will like just face the characters towards one another and make sure that that doesn't happen. So a safe move should be a safe move if that's the design intent. So I think that's absolutely fine, and it's a reasonable, I wouldn't really call that a buff. It's more like, you know, adjusting an unintended interaction, which is just fine, right? It says here the motivation adjustment have been made to address the situation where, despite being in a jump status move that isn't punishable when blocked, unintended high damage combos could be performed regardless of whether the move hit or was blocked. So there you go. Okay, next we're going to look at one of the most powerful moves in this game, at least before this patch, probably still, and it's Dragunov's Sneak 4. So this is the infamous Dragunov drop kick, or sorry, axe kick, that, you know, is half of what happens in interactions online in Tekken right now. I wouldn't be surprised if this move here makes up like a significant chunk of all the moves that are being performed right now. This move is so good because it gives you a bunch of chip damage. It allows you to maintain like an insane amount of pressure. It's fast, you know, it's heat engaging. It's just very, very good. It's high damage. And you can transition into this sneak stance in powerful ways with the new full crouch low and all the rest of it. So this move was way too good. Its one weakness was that you could step it consistently to the right, and it's something that is hard because Dragunov is usually very fast and you have to like know that it's coming, and you can do that. And I've started to be able to do it quite consistently online, which is nice. So that's good for the move to have a weakness. What they've done to it is the distance between the player and the opponent on block has been increased, and the chip damage has been reduced by 3 points from 8 to 5. So if we set my opponent to second option all guard here, and we perform this classic transition right in here, you can tell that there is now some pushback, meaning that Dragunov is not in a position to like mount all this pressure continuously, because there's a bit of space for the opponent to breathe, to move out, all the rest of it. I think it's not as significant a nerf as you might suppose, because a lot of your, like for example, full crouch moves still hit comfortably from the range that Dragunov is at. The other issue is what you do with this move with Dragunov is you run people into the corners, and obviously if their back is to the wall, then the pushback doesn't matter because they can't be pushed back. So it's still like very oppressive when you're using it to bully people in the corner, which is like this move's strongest niche in my opinion. So there's that. The other thing is that they haven't really addressed what I think is the real power of this move, the real thing that like needs to be looked at with it. So let's explain how I think this move should have been nerfed, or what they should have thought about when they nerfed it. So if we record my opponent doing the same transition here. No, we're gonna do the heel kick first, actually. There we go. So I'm going to show you what I mean about that sidestep right. My opponent does this, I tap down and I sidestep right, and I quite consistently sneak out of this attack right, and I'm able to punish. Well, if I record my opponent's Dragunov here doing a different move from the same stance from sneak, for example, this thing right here, which happens to be one of Dragunov's most high-powered launchers. This is the one where he was doing like all those, you know, 100 damage combos. And I try and step in the same situation. I get launched every single time. If I go to the right, I get launched every single time if I go to the left. And so the fact that the axe kick is so prolific, basically what I'm trying to say is that you have to attempt to step it to not give Dragunov all of this continuous pressure, and that means that it's top of mind. You're looking for the axe kick, you start stepping, and then Dragunov has other options from the same stance that become infinitely more likely to hit, giving him all of this damage, right? So the sneak is still very oppressive in my opinion, and it's also true that they haven't really improved, you know, what's going to happen as the opponent when you're being pushed against the wall and in the corners and stuff like that. So it is a move that needed to be looked at, but I'm not a huge fan of what they did to it. The chip damage being decreased is nice. You could remove chip damage from this completely, in my opinion. It would still be, you know, a little bit too oppressive, but there you go. So those are the changes to Dragunov. I mean, less combo damage, a more consistent bootleg hop kick, and then the heel kick was nerfed in a way that doesn't seem all too significant. I guess the pushback is nice, you know, in the open or whatever, but you can still point blank while running two to your heart's content. You still have, you know, your axe kick, your heel kick, the hatchet kick, the new full crouch low, the down two, you know, the classic Dragunov package. So if you are a Dragunov player, keep on trucking. You're basically going to be doing what you did in the past, and it's not all that different. Now, next we're going to have a quick look at Jack. Now, somebody in my chat told me that Jack's back 1/1 +2 was a broken move, and I'm like, why would it be a broken move? It's not even that good. I didn't understand what they meant. Turns out that it is a broken move, or was, when you used it in combos, because if you used it like this, it prevented the opponent from doing what they call a backwards ukemi in the patch notes, basically meaning that you could use this to do like really crazy stuff in combos. So it only really happens when the opponent is in the air, right? If we record my opponent, not the move list, if we record my opponent doing it against me here when I'm in a launch state, there we go. You can tell that when I get hit by this now, if I hold back, I can do the backwards ukemi and I can get up at a safe distance without trouble. So that was something unintended that made Jack a little bit too good. I think you could make an argument that there are other things about Jack right now that make him a little bit too good, and they haven't touched any of those, so there you go. Next, we're going to have a look at Jun. This is really quite important. Jun was like probably the most broken character in the initial release of this game, and high prolific players like Nee even tweeted like this character is broken. And when we say broken in fighting games, what people usually mean is too good, but when something is broken, it's like the game is actually falling apart because something is happening here that is just like a little bit too crazy. It's not supposed to be possible, right? And Jun had stuff like that. For example, a standard launcher with Jun, you could end a combo in a certain way and then get one more combo, which meant that your standard combo could give you between 90 and 100 damage off of like every launch if you did it right, which is like just not the way the game is supposed to work. So it's clearly unintentional and clearly something that Namco had to look at. First of all, 443, 3+4 increased recovery time by 5 frames, increased the opponent's recovery time when blocked by 5 frames. These changes were made to address the situation where unintended follow-up attacks were landing after hitting the opponent with this move as the last hit of an aerial combo. So this thing right here, if you ended combos with it, you could get unintended follow-up attacks that were guaranteed, right? Very important change. And then up forward 1 changed the reaction upon hit. This adjustment was made considering that unintended follow-up attacks were occurring, allowing for damage output significantly exceeding expectations. So this thing as well right here. So the only real changes to Jun is that these broken combos where you could just get a bunch of guaranteed damage that you weren't supposed to have access to have gone. Everything else about Jun is exactly the same. So this is still by far one of the best characters in this game. But you're not going to, like, you know, completely kill your opponent with a single combo, which is a good change. But if you like Jun, you should actually be happy about this because, you know, they could have hit her a lot harder. Next, we're going to have a look at Leo, who also took some pretty significant nerfs. I think these are nerfs specifically to, like, pretty high level Leo play. I wouldn't you know, be surprised if a lot of like you know, sort of lower ranks, this isn't really something that people notice all that much because people aren't as worried about frame data and punishing certain situations. But they are pretty significant changes. Like A.O. Ritchie will feel, you know, these changes because, you know, probably like the highest level Leo ever, right? So it's first of all the back 3-1 and lightning glare back 3-1. So it's this string right here. Lightning glare, if you're unaware, is the name of Leo's install. So the way Leo's install works is when you have it, when your hands glow red and blue like this, which you always have during heat, you have access to this slow attack, which is a guaranteed 39 damage, which is big. Or you can mix that with the back 3-1 1+2, which is a guaranteed mid string for 42. So the design of Leo is basically you get these glowy hands right here, and then you constantly have an oppressive low mid mix up that the opponent constantly has to worry about. So it's scary to stand near Leo pretty much at all times, because Leo pretty much at all times has these glowy hands. Because of the way they designed the heat and whatever. But what you could do before was you could do the back 3-1 like that and pretty much hit confirm that and then let the final hit rip, which gave this like a bunch of safety. You could like fish for hits with this, and it was just a little bit too good. So what they've done to adjust that, if you check this out, they've made it -10. So that means that if a Leo player keeps attempting the first two hits like this and you see them blocked, you can actually, as the opponent, block punish here for a nice chunk of damage. If you have a nice 10-frame block punisher, most characters do these days. So I think this is a really good change, because you don't want, you know, something this high powered, and it's like that the power comes not only from the damage but from the 50-50 situation being that strong. That's the kind of thing that's very powerful in Tekken, when you can truly like force the opponent to guess, and there needs to be a risk associated with that to balance it out. So I think it's a good change. It says here, this adjustment is made to ensure that the intended mind games are in place, addressing the situation where the return was significant with relatively low risk. Good wording by Namco, and this is exactly what I mean. When you think about how good a move or a character is in Tekken, you should always compare risk-reward ratio. It's what everything comes down to. If something is potentially going to give you a bunch of damage, but there's no risk associated with attempting it, you can just attempt it until you are successful and get that damage, right? And it's why counter hits became overpowered in a really significant way in Tekken 7, and it's one of the major things that they adjusted with Tekken 8. They've removed a bunch of those really fast, really powerful, low-risk counter hits, right? So yeah, good change. One more for Leo. It's back 1, 1+2. Reduce the recovery time. So it's gone from -9 on block to -12. This adjustment is made to ensure the intended mind games are in place. So same thing here. This string right here, I think this is the one they mean, right? No, sorry, it's this thing. Right? Yeah. So when I saw this, when I first tested Leo in practice mode when the game came out, I'm like, how is this real? How could this be possible? I mean, it doesn't even make sense. How could this string be safe? Because, okay, if you're unaware, in Tekken, something being mid-mid, a 2-hit string being mid-mid, and safe on block is actually really quite rare. What usually happens in Tekken is you have a safe high extension that can be ducked, or a mid extension that can be punished, so that there's always a risk associated with doing the second hit of a 2-hit string, because you can get ducked if the opponent guesses right, and if they block, you can get punished, right? And so a mid string being safe on block is like a huge resource for you, because you can just throw it, and you know, if you're successful, great, right? But not only was this a safe mid 2-hit string, it was also like 35 damage and +9 on hit, meaning it's just like a crazy mix-up mid. The back one by itself has always had like significant range, and you know, been a good move on its own. So important change. I think, I mean, like the first thing I said when I saw this, like, how is this safe? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I think it was just an oversight by Namco. It's the sort of thing that they obviously shouldn't be putting in the game, pretty much. Leo taking a pretty significant nerf, but I think, you know, it's not going to be too noticeable. And if you're playing this character right now, it just means that when you apply the lightning glare mix-up, you have to be a little bit more careful. And if you're playing against a Leo, be very, very aware that you are able to punish the second hit of back 3-1, because if you aren't, the opponent will be able to abuse it in the exact same way that they were already. Next, we have Leroy, and what they've done is this back 3+4 right here, which is a new move for him that's like an attack throw that he uses for a combo ender. So like you launched, I don't remember my Leroy combos, I've never really done any, but whatever. If you hit with this in the air, it turns into an attack throw and it's like a high damage ender. So what they've done for this is they've reduced the knockback distance. So the reason they had to do this is if you get this blocked, you can tell you're still very close to the opponent on block right now and it's -14. It means that there's significant risk associated with the move. If this had enough pushback that the opponent was way over there and would struggle to punish me, again, it's a safe, relatively safe mid that I can throw and I stand to gain 46 damage. So there needs to be significant risk for this. And I mean, you don't even want to use it really for a mix-up mid. I mean, it's 18 frames. You know, it's supposed to be there really for those combo enders, so good change as well. Next is a Lily change, up 3+4. It's the one where she jumps in the air and stands on your face and kicks and launches you. And they've the collision detection against the opponent has been extended downward to make it more difficult to slip under a floating opponent. I think what that means is that when you did this move on an opponent who was in the air, Lily would go underneath them and end up on the other side. That's how I read that. And so if it has lower collision detection, that won't happen. It's something like that, but it doesn't seem to be a really significant change that we need to show. Same thing with Raven. Recovery frames after crouching guard against doppelganger attacks have been adjusted to match the standing block, fixing the inconsistency. So, and there are a bunch of doppelganger moves. So essentially, if you had a move with Raven here where you could block it standing or crouching, the frame situation was different depending on which way you blocked it, but now they have been, now they are consistent instead, which means that it's, you know, a lot more intuitive to deal with Raven when you've blocked him, taking your turn. So I think that might be a really good change as well. Next, we're going to get to, I think, the most popular character in Tekken 8, probably by a margin. Personally, I think she's cringe, but you know, whatever, to each their own. I can't deny the fact that her animations and you know, her voice lines and all the flair of the character are sort of intoxicating. I get why people are, you know, sort of hooked on this character. But what they've done here is they've changed the electric mid, basically. So Reina has this move where you can do a mid attack from crouch dash. This is the awkward part of the video where I have to do, there we go, an electric, even though I'm a scrap man. But you can tell that's 27 damage, it's knockdown, it's a mid, it's strong for mixing, it's 15 frames to impact, it's just very, very good in, like, you know, every way. Obviously, when you have heat with Reina, you can do these moves, you know, electric moves without doing any sort of certain input. I think it's very, 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 very funny that the heat gimmick of Mishima's is you remove the execution barriers completely. I think it's funny that people who played Mishima's in the past still do, and they've been talking about how they prefer honest characters that require execution all these years. You know, the fact that they still play them now, that you can just remove the execution barrier by, you know, pressing the main mechanic of the game, just means that they're pretty much all hypocrites and you should make fun of them. I'm just kidding, Mishima boys. But there you go. So what's the motivation for the nerf to this move, or what is the nerf to this move? First of all, reduced knockback distance when the attack is blocked, remove the crouching status during the first half of the attack animation. So when you're doing this move, when you go into the crouch dash itself, you're probably still going to be crushing, you know, heist, no problem. But when the move starts, it can be like interrupted by jabs, for example. So that's quite important. Increased the damage hurt box, made it possible to defend against with reversal moves. So I didn't know this, but apparently this move was irreversible before, for some reason. Moves that can't be reversed in this game are typically moves that don't connect with a hand or a foot, so a headbutt or a hip smash or something like that, because there's no limb for the opponent to grab, I guess is the logic, and then reverse the attack. So this should obviously have been reversible from the beginning. It's not going to make any difference unless you play a character who's very good at that sort of thing, but you know, there you go. You can at least jab against it now. So that's good, I guess. And then Sentai 1+2. The change here is basically that Sentai 1+2 allowed Reina to more or less infinite the bears. I guess it's this thing. This is Sentai, right? So bears have really, really big hurt boxes, and sometimes they can be like comboed in these strange ways, and it's like a difficult thing to balance for Namco. You could get like 6-sec combos on bears as Miguel in Tekken 7. It was just like the funniest thing ever. Next, we're gonna have a quick look at Nina. So Nina's, you know, more or less best move, or one of them, was this forward 4 right here. So the change to this move: adjusted the timing for the opponent to be able to block by 2 frames when hit from the front or side. This move boasts excellent performance as it has long reach and serves as an excellent offensive starting point. However, the latter half of the duration of the attack guaranteed a powerful follow-up on hit, leading to damage output significantly exceeding expectations. This change was implemented to address this issue. So you could hit with this from the front or the side, and if it hit in certain situations, could give you, like, you know, guaranteed follow-ups. You can still, you know, naturally get your heat extension off of this and everything, and I think it's still a very good move. You know, it's fast, it's got reasonably fast, it's got low crush, it's got good range. I mean, this is a good move, right? So that's a good little nerf to Nina as well. You know, it was obviously unintended that you were able to get this powerful follow-up hit. So they're finding stuff like this that are essentially bugs. You know, they're unintended interactions that you're not supposed to be able to do. And then there are only 2 more changes in the patch notes. Steve during ducking 1+2. All they've done here is that Steve's combos weren't connecting the way they were supposed to on larger characters, so they've adjusted that so that Steve's combos work as intended right now. That's great. A high quality of life and consistency in combos is something that every character deserves, even if they are overpowered. And you know, you're supposed to be able to, like, do your intended combos without worrying about them being suddenly inconsistent, I think. And then Yoshimitsu during Manji Dragonfly, so that's his flying stance with the hand, corrected an issue whereupon transitioning into Muto no Kiwami, which is his no sword stance, the airborne state persisted longer than intended, leading to the opponent punish attacks hitting while still airborne. So if you did the Manji Dragonfly 2-3 back, he would go into no sword stance, and if the opponent tried to punish this, they would hit Yoshimitsu in an airborne state, which, if you don't know, means that he takes significantly reduced damage. I don't know if this was a float situation, but when you punish somebody and they have their feet planted on the ground, you do 100% of the damage, and they can't be floated, and that's usually what you want when you're punishing somebody, right? It means that you can't get, you know, the stance transition and the intended mix after you're punished and things like that. So it's another change for consistency. So it's not a major patch. Not that many characters have been looked at. Oh, there's an Elisa change, by the way, and I know I have Elisa players watching my channel. It says that destructive form forward 1+2, which is when she stabs with both chainsaws, has gone from +8 to +5 on block. Don't worry about this. It's not a nerf at all. It was always +5, but the game displayed it as +8 because of a bug, right? So the move actually hasn't changed. It's just like correctly being displayed in the frame data right now. And Elisa players had actually already noticed this, and we sort of knew that this was being shown in the wrong way. I even saw it in my comments on the video I posted yesterday. So yeah, I'm happy with the characters that they chose to look at. If I had to pick like a top 3 characters that had to be looked at, it would be Deviljin, Dragunov, and Jun probably. So that's really good, but I don't think that the changes are huge. And the biggest one is really the Devil Jin Hell Sweep Morning Crow thing. But, you know, it was coming. It was gonna happen. And if you play one of the crazy, crazy characters right now that hasn't been nerfed in this patch, you know, if you're playing regular Jin or King right now, you can still do crazy things, at least until the next patch rolls around. I hope there's something more significant on the way, adjusting a bunch of characters. There are a couple of characters that need to be buffed. For example, Zafina needs love. I think the best way to buff her would be to significantly increase the power of her Azazel hand moves, so that there's just a resource exchange that makes sense when you sacrifice health to use these moves. They should be powerful if they have that significant downside. But let me know what you think. Yeah, the game is going to be down, the online mode, for a couple of hours now while they, fix this up. And then we'll be back and playing online again. Hope you're enjoying the game. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you again very soon.